Welcome back, everyone. This final part will close out the chapter and we'll finish up with government power related to real estate. The four types of government are police power, eminent domain, taxation, and escheat. The authority of the government to regulate and control certain activities in order to protect the public's health, safety, and welfare is referred to as police power. Zoning ordinances, building codes and permits, environmental laws, and public health measures all govern land use. These regulations may specify the types of structures that can be built on a property, where they can be built, and how they must be built. They may also establish standards for parking, landscaping, and signage. Zoning governs the type of activities that can be accommodated on a given piece of land, as well as the amount of space devoted to those activities and the placement and shape of buildings. Zoning restrictions are primarily enforced through building permits. Non-compliance can result in having an unmarketable title. Unmarketable title means that the property cannot be easily sold. Rezoning is the process of changing the zoning classification of a specific piece of land, usually to allow for different types of land uses or to increase the density of development on the property. Rezoning is typically preceded by a formal application process that may include public hearings, environmental studies, and other assessments to determine the impact of the proposed change on the surrounding community. Rezoning applications are reviewed and approved or denied by the local government or zoning board. Building permits ensure that development plans comply with safety codes and pass all required inspections during the construction process. Following the completion of final inspections, a certificate of occupancy or other form of approval is issued. Police power can also be used to protect the public's health and safety by regulating issues such as hazardous waste disposal, noise pollution, and air and water quality. These regulations may restrict the type of activities that may be carried out on a property, or they may require property owners to take specific precautions to mitigate potential risks or hazards. While governments have the authority to regulate land use and other activities in the interests of public health, safety, and welfare, they must do so in a manner that does not infringe on the property owner's constitutional rights. This means that regulations must be reasonable, non-discriminatory, and based on valid public purpose. A little investing tip for you: aside from individual property and land use codes, there's a general direction that municipalities and local governments strive for. These objectives and visions usually take the form of a general plan. Municipalities, for the most part, use land planning to manage private and public real estate development in order to address community needs and protect natural resources. A comprehensive plan, on the other hand, can provide an investor with more detailed development possibilities in neighborhoods, districts, cities, or other defined planning areas. These plans can generally be found on the city website. The power of the government to take private property for public use is known as eminent domain. When the government exercises this right, it must compensate the property owner fairly and justly. This authority is commonly used to acquire land for projects such as highways, airports, and public buildings. The Takings Clause of the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution is the source of the eminent domain law. According to the Takings Clause, private property should not be taken for public use without just compensation. As such, it only applies to private property and must be used for the benefit of the public. Negotiations between the government and the property owner to determine a fair price for the property are typical of the eminent domain process. If the parties are unable to reach an agreement on a price, the government may seize the property through a legal process known as condemnation. Condemnation is a legal procedure in which compensation amounts are determined by a real estate appraiser. There's numerous cases that challenge and sometimes defeat government power. The government must demonstrate that the legal taking of private land is for public benefit rather than commercial gain. For example, a city government may wish to construct a new highway that will run through a residential neighborhood. The city must use eminent domain to take private property from homeowners in order to acquire the land needed for the highway. The city will have to negotiate a fair price for the property or go through the legal process of condemnation if negotiations fail. In this case, the homeowners are entitled to fair compensation for the value of their stolen property. Taxation is the government's ability to levy taxes on individuals and businesses in order to generate revenue for public programs, services, and community improvements. Taxation is the government's ability to levy taxes on individuals and businesses in order to generate revenue for public programs, services, and community improvements. Income taxes, property taxes, sales taxes, and excise taxes are all examples of taxes that are levied. Income tax is a tax liability resulting from the ownership or sale of real estate, such as rental properties or personal residences. If you own a rental property, you must generally report the income on your tax return as rental income. This rental income is subject to federal and state income taxes, as well as local taxes. You may be able to deduct certain expenses related to the rental property from your rental income, such as property taxes, mortgage interest, and repairs. These deductions can help you reduce your taxable rental income and potentially lower your tax liability. When you sell real estate, you may have to pay capital gains tax on the profit that you make. The difference between the sale price and the adjusted basis of the property, which includes the original purchase price plus any improvements or other expenses, is generally used to calculate capital gains tax. The capital gains tax rate varies depending on how long you've owned the property and your income level. You may be able to defer paying capital gains tax by using a 1031 exchange if you sell a rental property and reinvest the proceeds into another rental property. This allows you to roll over the proceeds of one property sale into the purchase of another property without having to pay capital gains tax on the sale. If you sell your home, you may be able to deduct up to $250,000 of the gain from your taxable income if you're single, or up to $500,000 if you're married and filing jointly. You must have owned and lived in the property as your primary residence for at least 2 of the previous 5 years to qualify for this exclusion. Income tax on real estate can be complicated and depends on a number of factors, including the type of property, how it's used, and how long it's held. Be sure to use a tax professional to help you calculate your tax liability and identify potential deductions or tax saving strategies. Property taxes are assessments on real estate that property owners pay to their local government or municipality. Property tax is generally calculated based on the assessed value of the property, which is determined by a local assessor's office. Local governments rely heavily on these taxes to fund a variety of public services such as schools, roads, and public safety. Property taxes also fund services such as garbage collection, fire protection, and water and sewer systems. Property taxes are typically calculated by multiplying the assessed value of the property by the local tax rate. The tax rate is typically expressed as a percentage of the assessed value of the property and varies depending on the jurisdiction and type of property. Property owners are generally required to pay property taxes on an annual or semi-annual basis, and failure to do so can result in penalties, interest charges, and even foreclosure on the property. Property taxes can be a significant expense for property owners, and they can have a significant impact on real estate value and affordability. It's critical for property owners to understand their jurisdiction's property tax laws and regulations, as well as to stay current on changes in tax rates and assessment policies. Property taxes are always the first priority property lien, which means they are the most senior in terms of money owed. If you stop paying everything, the municipality can seize your property before your mortgage company. In other words, the municipality will take your property and sell it to a buyer in order to collect the money owed to them. These delinquent parcels are typically registered and bid on by investors and buyers. If the bid is successful, the buyer receives a certificate of purchase. Even after this, the original property owner has a redemption period to pay the owed taxes, which is determined by local law. Some states, such as Arizona, allow 3 years from the date the bid was sold to redeem ownership. Otherwise, title to the property will be transferred to the buyer via a treasurer's deed. State or local governments levy sales taxes on the sale of real estate or related goods and services. Sales taxes are usually a percentage of the purchase price and are paid by the purchaser of the property. Transfer taxes, recording fees, and documentary stamp taxes are all examples of real estate sales taxes. Transfer taxes are levied on the transfer of real estate ownership, whereas recording fees are levied on the recording of ownership with the local government. Documentary stamp taxes are levied on legal documents required for the transfer of real estate ownership, such as deeds or mortgages. Real estate sales taxes and requirements differ by state and municipality. Some states, such as Florida and New York, levy significant transfer and documentary stamp taxes on real estate transactions, while others do not. Real estate sales taxes can add significant costs to real estate purchases, and buyers and sellers should be aware of the taxes that apply in their jurisdiction. Buyers may be able to negotiate with sellers to split or pay the taxes as part of closing costs. Excise taxes are levied on specific real estate transactions, such as property sale or transfer, building construction or renovation, or extraction of natural resources from land. State or local governments typically levy these taxes, which are based on the value or quantity of the property or activity being taxed. The construction excise tax is another type of real estate excise tax that is levied on building construction or renovation. Construction excise taxes are typically imposed by local governments or special taxing districts that are based on the value of the construction project. Some states and municipalities levy excise taxes on the extraction of natural resources from land, such as timber, minerals, or oil and gas. These taxes are usually based on the quantity or value of the extracted resources and are paid by the resource developer or owner. Real estate excise taxes can add significant costs to real estate transactions and activities. Buyers, sellers, and developers should be aware of and plan for the applicable excise taxes in their jurisdiction. Power of the government to claim ownership of property when it's abandoned, unclaimed, or when the owner dies without a will or known heirs is known as escheat. This authority is typically used to ensure that the property is not left unclaimed and is put to productive use. Assume a homeowner dies without a will and no known heirs. The state may initiate an escheatment proceeding to take possession of the property and dispose of it in accordance with state law. The escheatment process typically entails a legal proceeding initiated by the state or government agency in charge of managing abandoned or unclaimed property. The process may include looking for the heirs or interested parties, notifying potential claimants, and determining the property's value. Escheatment has several exceptions, such as when the property is held in trust, the owner has designated a beneficiary, or the property is exempt under state law. For example, suppose a property owner creates a trust and names a beneficiary to inherit the property upon their death. When a property owner dies, the property is transferred to the designated beneficiary and is not escheated. It's critical to consult with legal and financial experts to ensure that any transactions or agreements are in accordance with the various types of government power, as well as to understand the potential impacts that government actions may have on property rights and values. And that concludes Chapter 1, everyone. This chapter has provided a comprehensive understanding of the fundamental aspects of real and personal property, shedding light on their unique characteristics and differences. By exploring the distinguishing features of real property, such as immobility, indestructibility, and uniqueness, we have gained insight into its lasting and valuable nature. Conversely, the characteristics of personal property, including mobility and divisibility, highlight its more transient and replaceable nature. Moreover, this chapter has emphasized the significance of distinguishing between real and personal property, as these classifications have far-reaching implications in the industry. Understanding the differences between the two allows professionals in the field to navigate legal, financial, and transactional matters with precision and clarity. Additionally, we've explored the personal rights associated with real property, recognizing the importance of ownership, possession, and control. These rights not only provide individuals with a sense of security, but also serve as a foundation for economic prosperity and personal fulfillment. Lastly, we reviewed the government rights associated with real property, acknowledging the critical role played by regulatory authorities in ensuring public welfare and managing land use. Government rights, such as taxation, zoning regulations, and eminent domain, influence the way real property is developed, utilized, and protected. By acquiring a solid foundation of these key aspects of the industry, we're better equipped to navigate the intricate world of real estate and related fields. Armed with this knowledge, we can make informed decisions, address complex challenges, and capitalize on opportunities within the dynamic realm of property ownership. Next up is Chapter 2, which covers ownership and interests.